So the second of the big four are folded scales. That's where we're taking the 7 notes that make up the major scale in this case. We're playing a G scale. We're going to take those 7 notes and we're going to put them in a pattern. And this repeating pattern is what we call a folded scale. So that's F-O-L-D-E-D. If I play the open G scale, I can take those 7 notes, and that was G to G. The octave G, of course, is the 8th note, but it's a 7-note scale. I can take those notes and put them in a pattern. Let's just say I went 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay? So it kind of folds back on itself. It goes forward and it folds back on itself. Alright? So that was G, A, B, back to G. Now I go up to this next note of the scale. Next note of the G scale is A. And I play the same pattern. Okay? Then I go up the scale. Next note of the scale is B. And then C. So on and so forth. And you can just play that pattern. You can play that backwards. Just say I started now on D, still in a G scale. Right? So that was D. Going backwards. D, C, B, D. Then I go down the scale. Instead of up, I go down. Right? So that pattern is a folded scale. And they're pretty convenient because they tend to fall in groups of 4 more often than anything else. Now I could play a 2-note folded scale. I could go 1, 2. So there's my pattern. And I go up, the next note of the scale is A. Okay, then I'm just back to G there. Really any pattern that repeats we call folded. The reason the 4-note folded scales are nice is because a lot of times we are playing 8 notes. If we're playing 8th notes, we are playing 8 notes in a measure. And that's typically what you will find when you play a bluegrass roll. Say a forward-backward roll. It's an 8-note roll that fits nicely in a 4/4 measure. So a 4-note folded scale, then 2 4-note folded scales make 8 notes that fit into a measure very nicely. And so what I can do is I can add the single note scale, the linear scale that we talked about, just a straight scale of G. And then I can mix that in with a folded scale. There's straight. Now I'll start folding. Right, so the mixture of those two together is a good thing to do. That's kind of where you want to derive a lot of your arrangement ideas, is from that kind of thing. So that's why the 4-note folded scales are best. Now what I want to do is show you how to play the same thing. Remember, we can play a scale open, single string open, or we could play single string closed, that's what we're fingering every note with our left hand, or we can play it melodic. And so let me show you now how to play at least one of the folded scales, the one that's pretty typical to use, and I'll show you how to do that folded. So we're going to play the same pattern we played open. We're going to start with G here, and we're going to go G, A, B, back to G. Alright, and then we go to the next note of the scale is A. Alright, so that's the pattern. So I had to shift there to a new position. As I'm coming off that E note, I have to switch positions there to a new position for the F sharp. Okay, so that catches all my notes there. So again, that's a 4-note folded scale, just one of a couple of ways that you could do folded scales, but that's the example we use, and the one that you'll use most often in open and closed fingerings. Now we'll show you the same thing in melodic. Here's the same G folded scale, melodic style. So again, you're starting with your root note, you're creating a pattern, and you're just going up the scale. The idea is to take your straight scales, linear scales that just run back and forth, and your folded scales, which are these patterns, and if you can mix and match those, you can get a lot of interest. And so if you then can add the fact that you're playing melodic style, closed style, the way you finger them, open down here, mix those up, then you get different sounds that way too. But remember, all you're really doing is, if you have straight scales and folded scales, you only have 2 things that you're having to worry about there, as long as you have them down pretty well. So I can take just the folded scale that we've worked on so far. Just the one I've shown you there. Remember, there are many of these. I can take just that one and straight scales, you know, do them in each of the ways we just talked about: open, closed, and melodic. Mix and matching those, and just that one pattern, I can create a lot of interest. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to do this and show you how you can get different sounds. And you can do this as a way of improvising or as a way of creating solos. And what you're going to find in music, especially in fiddle tunes, if you were trying to play banjo over fiddle tunes or jazz or anything that has these really, or even classical music that has these really long linear progressions like that with a lot of scale notes. Create, improvise, whatever you want to do. You also will find that these kinds of patterns are what music are made of, and so you're kind of ready to face the music that you find that will include these if you know what you're looking for. Okay, so here I go. So there I'm just playing over a G chord, so there might not be that much interest just because the harmony's not changing. We're not changing to a different chord. But you can see you have a lot of variation and a lot of different sounds that you can create.